Hi everyone. Welcome back to another tutorial. So today I will be showing you how to create a 3D or a depth effect in PowerPoint. I have this color palette. It is very essential to actually know what color palette you will be using for. And the best way to get it, actually normally what I do is I take the company logo and then I use eyedropper to get all the colors that are in the logo. So let's say if the logo comprises of these four colors and I want to create a presentation which actually has a depth effect and looks cool. So I'll actually do the simplest presentation right now in front of you. So another thing you need to make sure is not to use too many colors, because you don't want to, it's not a coloring book. You need to make sure you keep it simple and you keep it like visually attractive, and to do that you actually use at least, or if not maybe 3 to 4 colors, and don't go beyond that, because if you have too many colors in it, it will be very difficult for you to create a balanced slide. So let's say in this case I want to quickly create a 3D presentation, or the one that has a popping out effect. So the first thing I'll do is, as I told you, the step one is to create a shape. So let's say this is my shape and I want to create a 3D impact. Let me actually use this color from my logo. And to create a 3D effect, I will actually use something, triangle. Now I will actually make it a right angle triangle. I will fix it here at the edge. I will drag it until here and make it like this. So I'll just make sure it goes from edge to the other end. Okay, it's upon you how much height you want, how much width you want. Now this one I will say no line, and I will use the step 2, which I mentioned earlier, the darker version of the main color that I'm using. So in this case I will go to more color and I will simply drag the cursor down to get this darker version. Now suddenly you can see it has more of a popping out effect. Now in the next one I will actually go for another triangle, insert shapes, triangle. It should look something like this, and I will actually try to match it with the above shape. Now as you can see, it has gone out, so I will just push it in a little bit and I will try to match it with the end. I say no line. Now I need to actually make sure this matches with this one like this, and can actually get away with a little bit of that like this, and something like this. Now since this actually forms the back side of this one, so I will say right click, and this shape I will actually send it back, so I get a much more seamless transition. Now this one, since this is dark, now in order to create this more of a depth impact out of it, I will actually use the original color. Now you see, looks like my shape is going from here to here and then back here. And to finish it off with, because I need to point it to somewhere, I will use this quick triangle, put it here, no line, and again, since the last triangle I used was the original color, I will use the darker color. So this actually is my first shape. Now you see how I create a 3D popping out effect for this infographic. Now to add more visual elements to it, I can see the color yellow over here is the most striking for me. Right now my infographic is pretty dull with dark color. So to use this over here, I will actually use another triangle like this one, make it a right angle triangle. I'll put here on the corner, and I will make sure that uh, both sides are equidistant. I will actually use eyedropper and then use this color and then no line. Now this looks much better. So what else I can do over here is for the heading, let me have a line here. This one, I'll use this 2 and make it the same color as our color palette that we are using. Alright, so lastly I will add some text to it. So I will go to insert, I will add a text box. Now let me call this as step 1. This font. Now over here you have couple of things you could do. Either you could use the same color as the one behind, this also looks good, or because this is a dark color at the base, you can actually use a lighter color. Now I will stick to the lighter color, and the reason is because my object is anyways in a dark color, so to keep the things balanced I'll have to use some light color over here as well. And I'll just make it bold, and then over here I will say the step 1 is to create shapes. Alright, just make it smaller like this. Actually 10.5 is okay, and then the description goes here. So I will say in order to create depth effect, we need to create shape and design the skeleton of our infographic. Okay, now as you could see, somehow it is left aligned for now, but because I think intuitively it will look much better if it is actually spread out and it somewhat stays in the middle of the box. I will use one less font, one smaller font, and I will use this. You want to get that effect. So actually I don't need this, so I'll just go with it. Create shapes and skeleton or infographic. Okay, so this is my first box. Now again, you can have as much text as you want, but this is just for the illustration purpose. I will select all the shapes within this infographic, or I will right click and I will group them all. So this is my first shape. Similarly, I will have a second shape over here and a third one over here. I'll just make sure they are equally aligned and they are actually at the same level. Now as I already created the first infographic, it was easier for me to create the next two. Now I'll simply play around with the coloring. Now to further enhance this, there are many things that we could do. Just pull it down a little bit. Okay, one easy thing you could do is you can actually use something to connect all these three steps together. So this is step 1, step 2 and step 3. Create shapes, change color, organize. Now again, I'm not changing the text for each, but you could actually, depending on what are you trying to show, you can actually change the text for your own purpose. So over here I'll go to shapes and let me see what's the best way of connecting to each other. So one thing which I can straight away think of is to create a semicircle here, which actually connects all three dots. So to do that, now if I create a full semicircle which is filled with some color, it will be a very heavy slide. So I need to actually make sure that I keep the slide balanced, and at the same time don't add too much content in it. So one thing I could use is the outline or a donut shape. So what I could do over here is I can actually expand the shape like this, and make it very thin. So if I do it like this, it should be somewhat like this. All right, so over here it should go from here connecting this one, and it should go from here connecting this one. Now I will do is I'll actually make it longer, and I will send this to back. Okay, now next thing to do is I'll say no line, and I need to select a very lighter color for this one, because the reason is the main hero of our slides, or the main thing, or the main objects that we are trying to show are these three popping out infographics. To do that, we already use dark colors, and I don't want something very dark in the background, otherwise it will be difficult for the user to read. So I will use a very light color, like a gray one. Yeah, light gray. So to connect these, maybe the next thing I'll do is let me use, what else can I do? Yeah, this one. So like this. All right, again I'll just reduce it by this one, and I'll say no line, and this one will go here, and to fill it up I will use a small circle like this. Okay, and this I can fill it up with this one and no line. Right, similarly I could use this one, the one over here. This I can use this, and this one I can actually use a darker color. Now same thing, I will add it over here. This one I will use the original color, and this one I will use the darker color. Now I feel like these rounds are pretty big, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna select these, group them, right click group, and make them smaller. Yeah, ungroup. Now this goes here, and this, oops, this goes over here under this one, and this goes here under this one. All right, now this one I'll just make sure one more time that this actually goes perfectly behind these circles. So it goes from here, and this one should actually go from here. Yeah, something like this. Here we go. Now you could see how all the objects are aligned and they're all connected to each other. Now again, the slide looks pretty empty because I don't have any template yet. So if I have to quickly create a template, what I'm going to do is, so I'll simply go over here, shapes, create a rectangle as a header, say more colors, 82, 88, oops, 88. Now this is, I'm just trying it out randomly. Yeah, looks good. No line. No, I'll actually put my color palette on one side because I don't want it to disturb my presentation for now. Okay, so what I will do over here is I just want to create a nice effect over here like this one. I'll use something called a parallelogram once again. So what I will do over here is I will design this over here like this one. Okay, now in most of the shapes where they have like corners, by default PowerPoint gives you option to actually drag them and make them as per your need. Okay, so in this case I want something like this over here. However, I also want to cover this space. To do that, any shape you make in PowerPoint, you can actually create your own points like this one, and you can move them around the way you want. So what you have to do is in the shape, right click, go on edit points. Once you do that, you can actually create your own random customized shape. Okay, now in this case I want this to fill it until here. All right, and I think this slope is not that good. Now it looks much better. Just make sure this is okay, and I will just click here, and this I have the new shape. I'll say no line, and this I will color as white. Now you see some borders are still visible, so it's okay. I will just drag it down a little bit. I'll say edit points, just make it like this. Now you don't have to worry about this going out of the slide, because anyway the portion out of the slide is not visible, whether it's a slideshow mode or if you're trying to print your slides. In both cases, anything out of the slide will not be visible anyways. Okay, now you see there's a nice shape to it. Now what I want to do is I want to create a quick footer as well. So what I will do is shape, I'll go to insert shapes. I will use the same rectangle like this one. Now just to make it look aesthetically more balanced, I need to make sure that the width is same. So the one that I am using at the header level is more or less the same width. Yeah, and then I will say solid fill, and then I'll use the same color. Okay, now one thing over here is we need to have the company logo. Now I don't have any logo right now, so what I will do is I'll just go to insert icons. I will just use one random icon, let's say eagle. Let's suppose this is my company's logo. I will just make it white. Now over here, because the background color is dark, it would make more sense to have a white logo. Now a lot of corporate companies, they have couple of types of logos. So one is the traditional colored one, and the other one is the normally the black and white one. So if we use the white one, this will look much more nicer. And then I will name it something. So text box, flying, I don't know, flying eagle. Sounds funny, but actually this can potentially be the name of company. I'll just increase the font a little bit. Now there are a couple of ways I can align this. I can use this like this one, but the reason is because the logo itself has a lot of height to it, then it has a width to it, so it's actually better to cover the height with the text. So what I would prefer in this case is to have eagle text here and the flying on top. So this actually covers up the height of the object with the text. Again, there are a lot of ways to do things. Now if you want to make it the other way around, it's also perfectly fine. Now one thing you notice over here is I have these colors. Now if I had these colors in my logo, right, it would have been much better for me, because then I know, okay, the theme is aligned as per the logo I have. But in this case my logo is actually white, so I still want to give a little touch of those colors somewhere else to make sure that, you know, my slide is aesthetically balanced. So what I will do is I will use the same color palette that I'm using. I will just say group, and so I'll bring it to front and I will put it here. So this way at least I have given the touch of the color palettes that I'm using, and this actually looks way nicer because now my colors that I'm using within the main presentation are somewhat there somewhere in the header and footer as well. Now one last thing to look into it, I see this thing on the right side over here looks pretty actually blank, so there has to be something over here. So what I will do is I will use maybe a simple rectangle like this. Alright. Now when you're creating shape on top of the shape, it's actually very difficult to align these two. The only way you could align is if you click, you see the shape behind. Otherwise, you don't see it. So normally what I do is I remove the fill and I use the lines to align the shape, and then I will actually use a pretty light color so it's easier for me to see how the shape is actually being formed and how does it look on top of the previous shape. So I'll do it like this. Now I need to create a border on this one. So let's say this is the width of my border. Now to keep the same width, I'll have to have a point over here and I'll have to have a point over here. So to insert any points on a shape, as I told you earlier, we right click and we say edit points. So I will click here and I will say add point, and I will click here and I will say add point. Now if I move this one like this, you see my both points stay intact. Yeah, and similarly if I move this one, still my both points are intact. I just make sure that approximately the distance is same, and as you can see I made the border over here. So what I will do next is I will say no line solid fill and I will color it this one. Yeah, now just to give some fine touches, you can actually move it around and make it well aligned. As you can see, this looks a very nice border and it actually becomes a part of your presentation. Now what else can we do over here is, let me say if I want to have the heading over here, I can say something like PowerPoint 3D depth effect. Alright, or yeah, I think that sounds fair enough. And then I'll use the font that I'm using. Actually I don't like pure black color. I usually use some gray, some sort of shade of gray in it, because that looks much more soothing to eye. So I will use this. I will actually make it bigger and somewhat this. Okay, somewhere in between those two. 20 looks better. Yeah, so this is the heading of my slide. Now over here this looks empty, so one quick thing we can do is we can create a circle. So like this, I will actually create a semicircle here and I will move it around like this, make it actually bigger, and I will make sure it aligns with my outer circle. This, oops, I will actually send it back so it goes below the border. This, say send to back. Again I will use a very light color over here, probably the lightest shade of the gray, and then no line. So over here We use the same one. I will say 3 steps. Get bigger. Actually, this I'm using 20. That's okay. 3 steps. Create depth effect in PowerPoint. Middle, make it smaller, and I will do it like this. All right. So as you could see, the font inside actually is quite bigger than my logo and this one, and it doesn't look it looks a bit odd actually to me. So I will try to increase the logo size so that there is some harmony in the fonts that we are using. Yep, it's okay. So now you see, within like few minutes we were able to design our own slide which has a 3D popping effect, and which also has some nice layout to it. Again, if you want to create more slides, you just do this one and then you can remove this. And as you could see, you have your template, you change the heading and you design new stuff.